Is it good if I stand here? Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Ray Carney. I'll be presenting today. I want to thank Lynn for getting this all set up. Today on my, we'll give this a second.
Welcome to join. Please enter your conference ID and
No,
press
Lynn,
the
There's
pound
some
key.
food over here, some chips and fruit vegetables.
Lynn, it dawned on me this morning that I did
You
not
will now
use
be
the
placed
standard,
into the conference.
like you have like a little template
I do?
that, well, sometimes people have like an about the speaker slide. I didn't do a slide like that. So, my name's Ray Carney.
Ad lib.
So, I am a certified project manager and a certified Scrum Master. So, this is something that I've kind of gotten into in the last maybe year and a half or so. And, it's really my honor to present it to you today. I gave everybody a handout here. So, this is the process, this is basically the process, everything you need to know about Agile Scrum is on this sheet here. So we'll be going through this today, and it'll be giving you a real good feel for what all this means. So topic today.
Hey, Ray. I'm sorry. This is Drew. Did you have something to share on the screen?
There's a connection.
The slides are posted on the Lunch and Learn website
Oh, they were just video.
under the Lunch and Learn.
Okay.
Then you can pull them up that way and follow along. We are recording the
Okay, sounds
session
good.
for future viewing.
Okay. So what is Agile Scrum? So Agile means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So when you say just what is Agile, that's a little bit separate. We're going to focus our time today on a section of Agile called Scrum. Agile is all about iterations. It's all about feedback loops. You see here, iterative and incremental. Okay, so the whole thought here is how do you manage the project in increments? How do you have quick increments? You don't say, hey, develop me an X or develop me a widget, and then a year later come back and say, well, here's the widget we made you, and then everything's not to your liking because so much has changed in the world. So, iterative and incremental, those are basic Agile concepts that Scrum uses, and that's why Scrum falls in Agile. It's more used in software development, but it can really be applied to almost anything, any kind of management. So just because the software people are ahead of most other practices, I think the concepts here, as you learn to apply them, really yield huge benefits. The other thing I would say is where Agile doesn't work well is when there's high fixed costs. So if there's not high fixed costs on the type of work you're doing, then if there's not high rework costs on what you're doing, then Agile works really great. This isn't a new concept. 1986. Okay, so this has been around for a long time. These guys, these two Japanese guys, they wrote a book in 1986 called The New Product Development Game. So while most of the time you're using it for software development, it's also for regular product development. Yeah.
Can you explain the why not for the fixed cost issue again? That's sure.
Well, it just applies better to knowledge work. The reason why is because, okay, it costs a lot to put up a wall, right? To some degree, it costs a lot to put up a wall. Knowledge work, you can rapidly change. You can say, you know what, I like what you did with that graphic. However, can you make it blue instead of green? You didn't pay a lot of money to change it from blue to green. When you move the wall, or when you move the building foundation, when you move the building foundation 10 feet over, you're putting lots of money in there. You want to get that right the first time. You don't want to have to rework it in iterations. See what I'm saying?
I do. Is there an example? I don't want to go too far down this path, but
Sure.
an example, in the services world, when I think of fixed costs, I think of all of our indirect support. Is it the idea that if it's a process that we're using that involves a lot of their indirect support, and you can't sort of get rid of that support easily or whatever it is because it's fixed? Does that apply, or am I going down the wrong path?
Well, okay, so on the next slide here, you know, this is about managing the flow of work through a system, okay? So if there's a flow, there's always a flow of work. There's always like, you know, how do you get that flow of work through the team? So there's lots of team application, team concepts that I think work even if, I think what you don't want to do is, it's more for demo purposes is what I would say, Matt. Like, so if you're going to build a car, you don't say, hey, just, you know, you want to look at demos, you want to look at little models. It's like quick hit, iterative type stuff. So I guess like, you know, if you wouldn't just build the building, you wouldn't just get started. You know, that's the kind of thing. Like, there are certain things where there's strong design phases, where there's strong, you know, there's certain practices out there where there's strong phases where you want to stick to those best practice phases. So Agile just, the only thing I say is it's not a process that works for everything. But, you know, for knowledge work, you know, for quick increments where you want, you know, where you want things back. So I don't know that indirect rates are going to drive up the price. It's more fixed. When I say fixed costs, I mean hard costs than necessarily fixed costs. Key principle for Scrum is recognition that projects change, customers change their minds all the time. We all know that. You know, like, I mean, customers say, well, you know what, I thought I wanted this, but now that I see it, I don't want this. You know, what we do is we call that requirements churn. You know, we can't predict the challenges we're going to face as we start to get into things. So how do we get feedback from our customers? How do we make sure we're on the right path? That's what Scrum does. Agile and Scrum adapt to the changes. So you know, it's not a long design phase, then a long build phase, or a long implementation phase. It's how do you get the phases quicker. Scrum is all about managing a flow of work through a team. What I really like this line here. What we're going to talk about today, the goal is the simplest process that will probably work. Like, nobody can guarantee that it can work. Some teams are so messed up that you just can't fix them. Sometimes the work is so complex, or you're ahead of your time, or you're behind your time. It doesn't matter if you deliver good product. You know, like there's lots of things that can make you not result in success. It's just this process here is the simplest process, the most elegant, simplest process that will probably work. So we can't guarantee results. We can just say that this process will give you a better chance. Okay, so you can kind of go along on your handout, and then like what I've done is in purple up at the top here, I have circled, you know, like kind of like what we're talking about on the slide, and then like we'll go into each of these kind of in depth. Feel free to ask any questions the whole way. So, you know, Matt, I appreciate the questions. There's only 3 roles in Agile Scrum. Okay, 3 like things that people do. One is the product owner. We'll go on to all these in the next couple slides. You can kind of take a look and see who these people are in the flow. But one is the product owner. The second is the Scrum Master, and the third is the team. So first, the product owner. The product owner represents all the stakeholders. So basically, like, this is the champion. I want this work done. I'm the reason why we're doing this. I take inputs from all the stakeholders. I let the team know kind of what I need, and then I provide the team feedback on what they do. Typically, Scrum teams have one product owner. So, you know, you could be on multiple teams and have multiple product owners, but you really only have one product owner for that one product that you're looking for. So when you create the role of product owner, you're saying, hey, this is where I get clear feedback. This is where I get a clear message on what my next steps are. This is how I know if I'm on the right path. Some people call this a customer representative. Some people say voice of the customer, like in Lean, Six Sigma, it's like voice of the customer, you know, that sort of thing. Like, so like it could be lots of different things, but in Scrum, you call it the product owner. One more quick thing here. The product owner is a member of the team. The Scrum Master, is more of a facilitation role. So like that's the key action verb for Scrum Master. It's all about facilitating the team. It's all about helping the team get to where they want to be. This is really important. The Scrum Master is not a team lead or a project manager. So the goal is not, the goal here is to process work through the team, process work as a flow, not the detailed scheduling like PMI framework. Let's see here. So, the Scrum Master really, it's like, there's one other word here I really like, team facilitator or servant leader. It's really up to the Scrum Master to make sure the team is succeeding, to make sure the product owner is getting what the results they need. And one of the key roles is to remove impediments. So it's the Scrum Master's job to work with the team on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that all impediments are removed. Impediments are, I'd love to do that work for you, I'd love to get the product going for the product owner, but I can't for some reason. So it's the Scrum Master's job to facilitate meetings and remove impediments for team members. I think one of the other, just to reiterate, one of the other real key points is not a project manager. So like, even though it's PM-like duties, some scheduling stuff, some making sure that certain things are happening according to plan, it's just not the same role as a PM. The team. Okay, so, this is where you get a little bit of ambiguity because it's like, well, what kind of team do I need? Well, you need the kind of team you need to get the project done. So that's something that the product owner needs to dedicate resources to, and the Scrum Master needs to make sure that impediments are resolved. But the team is basically the team of people that you've assembled to get the work done that needs to get done. The team is responsible for delivering potentially shippable product. So like that's kind of like, that's an interesting term that we use, like ambiguous on purpose. Well, what is shippable product? I don't know what shippable product is. Like, what does your company do? What does your company do? What's your core purpose? Like, for Apple, it's phones and iPads and stuff like that. For, Facebook, it's like new pieces of Facebook software that users will use. So shippable product is just what are you trying to get the team to get completed. One thing that's really important about Scrum that I think is a really cool feature is the team is self-organizing. So, whereas normally a project manager or a manager in general says, hey team, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. In Scrum, we say, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to set guidance, we're going to set timelines, we're going to say when the reviews are, we're going to let the team self-organize. And what you kind of start to get into with the team is, everybody's a professional, everybody wants to do great work, everybody wants to do good things. The truth is you can't make people do things. You can't like tell them, hey, you're going to do this and you're going to get it done by this deadline. Like the team self-organizes already. And that's what's really great about a lot of this framework is it's just common sense. It's just saying it in a different way that like resonates better with people. So like you're either going to do the work you're going to do or you're not going to do the work that you're going to do. I'm going to check back with you in X amount of time to make sure that you're doing it, to hold you accountable, and just tell me the truth. Like, if you're not going to do it, just tell me, So it's a self-organizing team. It's a lot more like the way stuff really gets done than the way stuff really gets done rather than like the way we try to impose our will on people and impose our projects onto people. This is more of a, okay, well, this is what we need done. We're going to brief it this day. What do you want to do? I put this here, no product owner and the Scrum Master are both team members. So when the team meets, it's not like the product owner is such an important person that they just stay in their office in the other building. The product owner should be part of all team meetings. When the Scrum Master meets, usually the Scrum Master is facilitating those meetings, but they're part of the team too. The team doesn't really meet without those two people. They're even though they have distinct roles in the process, they're team members. Okay, so those are the roles. The next thing is meetings. So there's only four types of meetings. Now, you can have other meetings if in order to get the work done, you need to have technical exchange meetings, or you have to have like some kind of like, design meeting or whatever, like okay, there's other meetings. It's just in relation to the Scrum process, there's only four types of meetings. Those four meetings are sprint planning, the daily Scrum, sprint retrospective, and sprint review. So we'll go over all those right now. Sprint planning. Sprint planning is a meeting, it's a time-boxed meeting. What we do is we select, in this meeting, the team gets together and the team selects what work needs to be done. So typically, the product owner comes with a backlog. The product owner says, hey guys, this is what I need from the team. And then the team says, okay, well, what are we gonna do in X amount of time? You know, could be a week, could be 4 weeks. Next time we meet, when can we do a review with our product owner? How much can we get done? How much shippable product can we get done? And they prepare that sprint backlog. So that sprint backlog says, this is what we're gonna do, this is how long it's gonna take, this is like when we're gonna demo for you. You say how much work you think it is. Typically the team decides a deadline, or they decide that when the sprint review will be, time limit for the sprints. During the first half of this meeting, basically the whole team says, okay, these are the things we're gonna get done this sprint. So in the next, usually, a lot of times, a mark on it usually ends up being 4 weeks. You say, okay, well, in the next 4 weeks, what are we gonna get done? The first half of the meeting, you say, okay, well, what are we gonna get done? This is what we're gonna do the next 4 weeks. Do we agree? Yes. Okay, the next half of the meeting, the sprint planning meeting, we say, okay, what does it mean? What do these things mean? What are we really gonna get done? What's the shippable product for each of these things? How are we gonna work those down? What's our goals? What are we gonna do as a team? So that's pretty much how that meeting is shaped. The meeting is all about looking 4 weeks out, looking the sprint duration, but I'm gonna keep saying 4 weeks. Looking 4 weeks out, what are we gonna deliver in 4 weeks for our product owner? At the end of that sprint planning, you usually want the product owner to say something to the effect of, hey, if you guys get all that done, I'm gonna be real happy. Like, you know, that's what I need.
Hey, Ray, to that point, I haven't been in the backlog discussions. I've fed some information into your backlog, but who's making the backlog decision? Is the product owner racking and stacking the priorities based upon perceived return on investment, or is the team racking and stacking the backlog?
Well, both happen. You know, I mean,
What's the best practice?
well, I mean, I don't know that there's a best practice. Both of those things should occur naturally as part of the project. The product owner should provide the team priority. However, the product owner's priorities may or may not work with what the team can get done in the sprint time frame. So the team has to say back.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be accountable for setting the strategic direction, and is that not the product owner's responsibility?
I mean, typically the answer in Scrum is the team decides. The team decides. That's the typical. That's the easiest answer. So the team has to decide. The team has to commit to what can get done in the sprints. The product owner has to buy off that the team is that what's feasible. The team can get done, and that's going to help advance the cause. You know, it can be that the product owner's priorities do not work with the team that has been assembled, and in that case, the Scrum Master and the product owner would need to figure out how to reorganize the team to remove impediments to get whatever needs to get done in the time frame needed. But it's a negotiation. What scope is determined for the sprint happens in the sprint review meeting, and it's a negotiation between all team members, including the product owner, Scrum Master, and the team members.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's why they call it a Scrum. I should have said this up front. So, the word Scrum comes from, it's a rugby term. So, like, when you start a match in rugby, like, everyone, like, kind of, the ball goes in the middle and everyone kind of gets down in a huddled position. And then, like, you know, I don't know how they do it in rugby, but it's kind of like, they, like, block each other and then they, like, scrum. And that's, so I guess, like, you know, that's the Scrum thing. It's like, that's how you negotiate with the product owner there. But the planning meeting is where that's decided. At the end of the planning meeting, hopefully the product owner says, yes, if you deliver this in 4 weeks, we'll be good. If the product owner at the end of the meeting says, no, this isn't going to get it done, I mean, the team doesn't just go back to their desks and say, forget it, the product owner's not happy. You know,
so that process in that planning meeting is a kind of a confirmation of requirements to some degree.
Yeah, for the next 4 weeks. This is what we're going to do for the next 4 weeks. Are you going to be happy with that? Mm-hmm. If we have more time, you could if your team's really advanced and you're working really well together, a high functioning team, you could say, hey, this is all we can commit to, but if we can get to something more, what do you want us to do? Like that sort of thing. So.
Ray, that sprint planning, means do you have to look beyond the next sprint? Do you have to look, say, hey, I'm not sure you can do this in the next 4 weeks, but if you make progress over the next 6 months, that'd be good.
Well, so it's definitely true that not everything just gets done in 4 weeks in the real world. So, if something takes longer than whatever your sprint duration is, they call that, instead of a user story, they call that a user epic. So, it is possible, like, there are certain things, these are pretty advanced practices, but they have sprints of sprints. So, or they have, like, basically like planning for planning, pretty advanced teams that are doing like, tons of stuff, will do, further visioning. We did something similar to that, we called it a meta sprint. But like overall, the main concept here is just focusing on the next 4 weeks, because the idea is that requirements will change. Like, how far can you plan? How far can you plan before requirements can change? Like, the enemy gets to shoot back, you know what I mean? Like, so there's going to be issues, there's going to be things you can't get done, there's going to be impediments that just can't be removed. So the whole thing is like, check back in 4 weeks, take it as far as you can, and Sharif, that's all.
When we think of Scrum, I think anybody who's had some exposure to it thinks of it in terms of at the project implementation stage. Are there, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, are there pieces of this that can be applied to business development stage where you haven't necessarily worked with a client and you're kind of walking them through, this is what we're going to be doing, giving them an idea of, if we were to win this business, this is what the plan would be, or in terms of this?
Yeah, I mean,
is it solely after winning the business and being on site implementing the work?
Right. The part that strikes me is, the truth is, traditional customers that haven't embraced Agile, they want you to propose a waterfall schedule that says, here's how we're going to do all this stuff. And both you and the customer know, when you present that waterfall schedule for the next 2 or 3 years, both of you know that after the first month, that waterfall schedule is garbage, and then you've just sold them this 2-year-long project. And you're probably going to end up doing something a little bit more like this, because you need feedback loops, the project evolves, the project changes, like the requirements change. So you're probably going to end up doing something like this. But most customers, Agile and Scrum basically say, hey, listen, let's not spend tons of time defining requirements crazy, like coming up with, spending all this time planning. Let's just get to work. You know what I mean? Like, let's start the work. Like, you need help, we want to help you, let's get going. Let's not go through all these crazy phases of, once we get to a hurdle, then we'll let you know. We won't spend all our time bogged down in planning. So I don't know if that helps with your question, but. So that's the sprint planning meeting, probably again, only 4 meetings in the process, probably one of the more important meetings that you're going to have. The daily scrum. The daily scrum is a really cool concept. I don't get the chance to do this as much as I would like. Especially you start talking about like how proposals are run, Sharif, or how other things are run. Like, something's important when you have a daily meeting. You know what I mean? Like something, that the work you're doing. Like if someone set up a daily meeting, well, there's something real going here. So the daily scrum basically says, hey, no matter what you're doing, it's important, we're going to meet every day. The reason why we don't get a chance to do it that much is because, a lot of our people are on site at contracts, like, hey, that's your primary thing. It's hard to get everybody together all at the same time. But, the daily scrum, it's basically a stand-up meeting, team meeting. We do it every day. The team decides the time. The team decides how often, or not how often necessarily, but the team decides the time. The team decides everything. Like, if some team members can't come at 8 o'clock, and some people want to meet at noon, maybe you have one at 8, maybe you have one at noon. You just let the team figure that out. You come up with a plan, and then you hold the daily scrum every day. Same time, same location. A lot of times, On your Agile framework, you'll see in the top left-hand corner, there's this board. We'll talk about the board a little bit later, but a lot of times you have like a Scrum room where you've said, where you put this board up to kind of keep track of your tasks. A lot of times you meet in that room to make sure that you figure things out. The daily Scrum is, oh, by the way, the planning meeting, how long does this meeting last? Like, that's a really good question. It should last an hour, or it should last an hour for every week of sprint. So like, how long do we need to plan? Well, if you have a 4-week sprint, you could plan up to 4 hours. So, I mean, like, whatever, if you have a 6-week sprint, it could be potentially up to a 6-hour meeting, so. The daily Scrum though, you should figure out how long it takes to go around the room, and you should time box your meeting. Like, the goal is not to have a meeting that drags on forever. The goal, basically, the meeting has a format. The format is, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What's getting in your way? What are your impediments? That's it. No one can say anything else. You can only say, you go around the table, you can only say, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What are your impediments? It's the Scrum Master's job to remove impediments. So when someone says, well, I would be doing this, but, like, that's the Scrum Master's job. Okay, well, let me fix that but for you so you can get on with your work. Let's see here. Same location every day. I mean, this is kind of like just general principle stuff, but they say anyone is welcome, but usually it's only Scrum members, Scrum team members. That's about it for this slide. So, but daily meeting, make sure everybody's touching base. What are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? Or what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Sprint review. This is like the demo. So like, you say, okay, well, what did we get done in the last 4 weeks? So you're all the way at the end of your process here. What did we get done in the last 4 weeks? Like, what did we produce for our product owner? What's our shippable product? We told the product owner, we told her 4 weeks ago we were going to do this. What did we get done? Okay, like, if you're doing a product development, you bring that demo of that product. If you're doing software development, you bring a demo of that software. If you're doing other kinds of work, you bring the demos of that other kinds of work. So whatever that is, to just kind of show your product owner what have you gotten done for that product owner. So basically, like, you review the work that was completed. You review the planned work that was not completed, so you're real honest about that. Hey, we thought we could get to this, we did not. Well, why didn't you? Okay, well, here's some reasons. All those kind of cycles. You present all completed work to the stakeholder. That's like a demo. The whole time, you are getting feedback from your product owner. So product owner provides feedback. It's really important that you get that feedback. It's really important that you take on that feedback and that you add backlog items based on that feedback. Hey, I don't like this feature I don't like this feature, or hey, I don't like the way we do X. Okay, well, let me add that to the backlog of something we may or may not want to address in future sprints. The sprint review is a very important meeting. How long should the sprint review go? How long should your demo go? The answer is 1 hour, or 1 hour for every week of sprint you had. So if you just spent 4 weeks doing work, do you have 4 hours worth of product to demo? And that's kind of like a roundabout idea. After you've presented your shippable product to the product owner, best practice is that you have a retrospective right afterwards. So in the retrospective, it's kind of like a lessons learned after action report, however you want to say it. What do we do? What did we do good this sprint as a team? What did we not do good as in the sprint as a team? We use a methodology that's just starts, stops, continues, thank yous, and shout outs. So like we kind of like bucket our feedback in those 4 things. You're trying to come up with, okay, well, what do we do better? What do we do better next sprint? We're going to do another sprint. Like, we're going to start another one tomorrow. What do you want us to do different, or how do we as a team react to each other a little bit different? So, this is just continuous improvement. there's no real time frame on the retrospective. Like if your team's got issues, you should probably just resolve those issues. But like typically, like on high performing teams, these retrospectives go quickly. But you know, I don't know that there's like, you know, I think like 1 hour is a good amount of time to do a retrospective. I don't know that there's any guidance to say how long that should be.
Before you move on, could you think of an example maybe of toss out there?
Sure. Like of what comes up in a retrospective?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we all have lessons learned, but just curious.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, so you might say, as a team, we're not communicating enough. Or you may say, as a team, or you may say, we signed up for too much work last time. Let's not sign up for that much work this time. Or you may say, we didn't sign up for enough work and then we ended up getting everything done in 2 weeks and just sitting around. Let's make sure we're pushing ourselves. So like, you know, you're just kind of like, I mean,
Assessing
Yeah, it
performance,
could be anything.
really.
Assessing your own performance, assessing how others communicated with you, like, you know, what did you do good, what did you do bad, what do you want to keep doing, you know, who really performed as a star, that kind of stuff. Okay, artifacts. Okay, so right now, on your sheet here, we've been through the roles, we've been through the meetings, and now the last thing there really is just the artifacts. That kind of closes out the process here. So there's only a handful of artifacts, which is good. There's the product backlog, there's the sprint backlog, there's the Scrum task board, and then there's shippable product. So those are the artifacts that are created through the Scrum process. You know what, I don't have slides for these ones, so I'm going to go over them on this slide here. Okay, so the product backlog. The product backlog is provided by the product owner. Product owner has stakeholders, customers, other inputs, other business inputs, other things driving. Product owner creates a product backlog. You can see it on your chart right here. Product backlog is basically what features, what things does the product owner want out of the product that you're going to deliver. Typically, the product owner breaks it down into user stories. User stories typically start out as a user I need, as a user I want. You know, that sort of thing. So if you were building the iPad, it may be, I only want one button to press. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, let's see if we can do that. Let's think if we can come up with something there. So, you know, the product backlog consists of stories. Stories are the things that the product owner wants to be delivered in the product. Product owners could, like, you know, the one I brought up, I only want one button. Like, that's like a huge idea. Like, you know, like, okay, well, how do we do that? Like, you know, like, I don't even know where to start. Okay, well, I want you to start thinking about how to make it so that it's only one button. That's all you need to do this sprint, is start thinking about how to make that work. You know, things like that. So, you know, you break it down to a user story. You've decided as a team, a story should not take longer than what you've decided as a team is your length of sprint. So if your sprint is a 4-week sprint, you shouldn't come up with a story that you know, where you say, well, that takes 6 weeks to get done. All epics need to be broken down into stories. All stories need to fit the sprint. If they don't fit the sprint, they're really an epic, and they need to be broken down further into stories. Then there's the sprint backlog. So the sprint backlog, which is right here on your chart, the sprint backlog is the team has met, the team has talked about what they plan to take on this sprint, and then they've listed just those things. So there's always a product owner backlog. Ideally, the team says, man, I really want to get after it for this product owner. Let's do everything the product owner needs, okay? But that's kind of like an ideal, you know, great situation. Like the team will do everything for the product owner. Like, you know, sometimes they have to say, no, you know what, we can't get to that this month. We can't get to that this sprint. We're going to deliver this much, you know? So that's why there's two different backlogs. The sprint is what you're working down this time. The product owner is always coming up with new features. The product owner is saying, oh, well, you know what, the users want it to be green. Well, we didn't know that till halfway through the sprint, so we're going to add it to the product backlog. While we're waiting for the sprint to finish, we'll present this one in next sprint, and we'll get that feature added next sprint. The sprint backlog is the stuff we're doing this time. Typically what you say to the team is, hey, commit yourself, be accountable, commit yourself. How much work do you want to get done during this sprint duration? Team says, okay. A lot of people, this is where there's a rub. A lot of people will ask a question. I think it's like a really hard question. They'll say, well, wait, Agile, you're supposed to just be able to like, free flow, like new requirement, like, oh, the customers want a green, but you're in the middle of a sprint. What, you just can't add that? No, you can add it. I mean, no problem. Just add it. Meet with the product owner. Tell the product, say to the product owner, hey, you want a new feature. This seems to be really important to you. You're saying you want us to stop everything and add this feature to the sprint, to this sprint. We're going to let you know the impact of that. We might not be able to get these other stories done. Is that going to be okay with you? I think that there are a lot of immature sprint teams out there that say, hey, listen, we're just doing what we're doing this sprint. And to some degree, that's important. It's like to say, you're asking these people to commit to the amount of work that you've given them. I think when you start saying, I want to add new work to the sprints, what you've kind of said is like, what I would say is really you got to reassess things. Like, hey, should we only be 2 weeks sprints? If we have that much change undergoing, should we only do this every 2 weeks? There's a lot of things you can do differently, but like, if the product owner wants something different and the product owner demands something different, the team has to react to that. That's just life, you know what I mean? Like, customers want different things, the environment changes, you're mid-sprint, you can't be like, no, we're not doing it, we're in the middle of a sprint. You gotta, I think you have to say, hey, listen, we're in the middle of a sprint, can we get to that next sprint? The product owner says, yeah, sure, do it in 2 weeks. Okay, great. The team's pretty clear on what they need to do. There's very little disruption. You deliver what you're supposed to. You add it in the next sprint. But if the product owner says, no, it needs to be done by this day, it needs to be done by that day. So it's all about the product owner. That's the backlogs. Those are the 2 backlogs. The Scrum Task Board is basically a real-time version of the sprint backlog. People do some different stuff here. This is a really cool concept. This is like, this was mirrored off of like, again, this is like Lean Six Sigma, Japanese manufacturing, and from the 80s ideas, like Kanban boards. Like, these boards have been around for a really long time. Not really long time, but you're going back 40 years or 30, 40 years. So Scrum has kind of taken on these boards. They're supposed to be stood up quickly, supposed to be easy to move, not like, it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't spend so much time on your board that you're not doing your work, you know what I mean? Like, that's why they use the blue tape, and that's why they use the sticky notes, because it's supposed to be flexible, and like, you just start building in a flexible mindset. In Agile, well, if you think about it, from a concept level, work can only be in 3 categories. It can be something you have to do, something you're currently doing, or something that's done. There's really no other categories. Like, we could start saying there are other categories, but they're just flavors of those things: to do, doing, done. Like, you could say, well, it's partially done. Okay, well, then you're doing it. You're still doing it. But to do, doing, done is a really cool concept that is pretty much, I don't know that it's an Agile concept, but it's just a concept that follows Scrum. To do, doing, done. I track all my work as to do, doing, done. All the work on the team. So, you see this board here, like I just took this picture off of Google. They have a thing called stories. That's kind of like a backlog. Okay, you want to add that. Your team would like to see kind of what's on the horizon. They're not doing it. You want to just kind of put a line on the board that says, here's some stories that might be coming down the road later. Okay, great. Add that to your board. Doesn't matter. That's the team decides. These guys here have kind of said, this is doing, they're in process, and they said verify. A lot of software teams will set up a thing that says test, so like, yeah, sure, you could put some other columns. If there's certain people that do the verification for you before you mark something as finished, maybe you do want a verify column, that's okay. But the key core concept is to do, doing, done. You should see work flow through that board. So like, it starts as a story, it goes through the board, it gets marked as done. Getting things to done is success. Getting the product owner happy, getting things done is success. As a team, all you can do is hope that you get it done. Done is shippable product. So, you know, if you don't have a shippable, I mean, you could get something done and maybe it's not shippable necessarily, like, hey, we just had to figure out this one piece and now it's gonna be used as something and everything, but, I mean, you know, I think that typically done should mean shippable. Like, we accomplished something, not just, well, we figured something out a little bit, you know what I mean? So, but shippable product could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and these are the artifacts. Let's see here. What we got next? This is a Mark-on Scrum board. So this is like a sprint in action. This was one of our earlier sprints. Like you can see here, we had a backlog and we had a to-do. And what this is basically in a sprint planning meeting where in the war room where we said, okay, these items are all things we need to do. We started saying, okay, well, what are we going to work on? We started moving cards from backlog to to-do. The yellow cards, so basically the blue cards just mean this is the kind of work we were looking for. And then the yellow cards mean what is success. So like that's where we defined like, you know, this is just the way we did it. This isn't like necessarily like it's got to be done this way. But the yellow cards were, okay, well, what does success mean for that? Like interviews, like what does success mean for interviews? Like this sprint, here you can see we wanted to do 26 interviews and two interviews per market. So like, you know, we wanted to report back to our product owner that we were able to complete that goal in the sprint. So, you know, like, I mean, but really like, and then what you kind of just do here is you say, okay, this is our backlog. We know this is stuff that we'd love to get to, but we just can't get to it right now. Let's move some stuff. Let's move this. Let's decide we want to do this work. Let's get buy-in. Let's get team buy-in. Let's get product owner buy-in. And then let's move all this stuff to done. A lot of times now, we don't use these boards anymore as Mark-on. We're just using this tool called Trello. It's pretty much the same thing as the boards. It's basically like a really flexible web-based software. You can download an app on your phone, and it's the same concept of moving work from to-do, doing, done, but instead you move these virtual cards. So, you know, what's great about this is, as a company, we can't always meet here at Mark-on. We can't get together at 8:30 every morning, kind of go over things in a daily scrum. So what we've done is we've outsourced a lot of the concepts of how Scrum should work. We've outsourced those concepts to Trello. You know, we use Trello basically as our virtual board, as our virtual Scrum board, and then everybody has access to it. Everybody can kind of see, everybody on the Scrum team can see how things are going, what things are happening. You know, I think when teams are not co-located, this is a really great tool. It's really served us well over time. I think when the daily scrum is hard and the board is hard, like, you know, you got to come up with some way to communicate as a team, and Trello helps us resolve that. We do a couple things, like, you know, I said, like, hey, it's so important to do to-do, doing, done. We do a couple things differently on some of these teams. We have something called standard, and standard is basically operational type work, where it's like we're going to do this no matter what. You know, so like instead of always talking about it, like every sprint, meeting as a team saying, we're going to do this, well, should we do this again? Should we start to collect BD opportunities? It's like, well, yeah, BD opportunities are one of our key metrics as a team. We're always going to be collecting BD opportunities. So we have that marked in a standard column. That's a little bit of a departure from like maybe like your most like pure board. We do something here called chatter. We have like a whole column that's just chatter. And what we're basically doing is like letting other people know like general info, arrivals, departures, creative ideas, if people are taking leave. It's really just an idea of, it's really just a way of communicating with each other using the board rather than mucking up the cards. Like we've kind of just like peeled out an area and said, hey, if you just want to talk to people, if you just need to talk as a team, because we're not getting together, because we're not having meetings, this is what we're going to use. And like you can see from this board, like we have a lot to do. Like you can instantly see, like, you know, you get instant visibility. Like this is the stuff we still haven't even started. This is the stuff we're doing right now. We have this ongoing, and we've only finished these 2 things, so we got a lot of work to do by the end of this sprint. What's great about Trello too is like instead of some of these yellow stickies where you just kind of note the goal, like here you can see like our goal here, we had like 54 things we wanted to check on interviews. We've only done 23. So you can kind of get more visibility as you get an online tool, and maybe not on the board. It's like, you know, you can kind of get a little bit more visibility with checkboxes, with due dates. I think one of these has a due date. I'm not too sure. And the other thing is like you can assign members. Like this card here, we have lots of people that are assigned to that card, so they're like keeping tabs on what's going on. This is the whole framework put together. So, you know, this is the kind of the document for your reference that you've been looking at the whole time. You know, just to kind of recap and show the flow like all together, because we kind of pigeonholed it into like the boxes or the tracks, but just so people kind of understand. There's inputs from end customers and team and stakeholders. Those all flow to a product owner. So it's not just people randomly grabbing a team member and saying, hey, can you add this to the product? Hey, you know, these stakeholders, they don't just say, hey, Scrum Master, we really want it to be green. Like none of that. If there's one person, that person owns the product. They let people know what's important to them. They let people know the guidance. There's a backlog. Product owner keeps the backlog. What features does the product owner need based on the stakeholder input? We have a meeting. It's called the sprint planning meeting. We work together as a big team to decide what are we going to commit to get done for the product owner by the end of the sprint. We then, based on what we've decided, this list is probably longer than this list. Based on what we've decided, we create a sprint backlog. We typically then build a board. We then go into a sprint. Best practice is 1 to 4 weeks. By the way, the quicker you sprint, the quicker you get feedback from your product owner, the more agile you are. So like, you know, like right now, we do it every 4 weeks, we're 4 weeks agile. If you do it every 1 week, if you can get work done in 1 week, think about how much more you can get if product owners were giving you feedback every week. Every week we have a demo. I mean, like whatever we're doing is so important that every week we have a demo. At the end of the week, it could be Wednesday or whatever, but at the end of the week, we're sitting with our product owner and we have to show him what we did this week. That's a real agile framework. You got your sprint. Your sprint is one big feedback loop. How do you get feedback? It's one big loop. You got your Scrum Master. This is the person that facilitates everything for you. You got your daily Scrum. That's where you talk about what did you do yesterday, what are you going to do today, what's getting in your way, what can I do to make your work get moving. You hold some more meetings. Here it says no changes in duration or goal. One thing, never changes in duration. It's okay, change a goal. Product owner wants something a little bit different. That's no big deal, okay? Like we're gonna add this product because the product owner said so. What you don't wanna do is you don't wanna change that demo date. If you set up a demo date of July 15th, like you hold that demo date. If you can't get that feature put in by July 15th, you say no, you don't cancel the demo. Like, you gotta keep the demos going. Time boxing is a very important concept in making sure things get done. The waterfall methodology of project management says if you don't get stuff done, just push it out. There's no pushing it out in Scrum. Time will continue to move forward. If you do not have a demo, you are not getting your work done. We have a sprint review. That's a meeting we hold where we show the product owner what we got done. We demo our shippable product. We get feedback. We start a new sprint. Before we do that, we say lessons learned. We do a retrospective. So that's about it. Thank you. I can take questions. Matt Drop, question.
Okay. So you say you don't do the waterfall schedule at the beginning, but if you're presenting to a client, you need some sort of framework.
Yeah, you do whatever the client wants.
Like what do you do that? I mean, as far as like a master.
Yeah, I mean, I think, hey, listen, like, waterfall's cool. Like, I mean, listen, that's what pays the bills, you know, do that. But even in the waterfall methodology, you're going to revert to something closer to this.
Sure.
You know, like, team members will tell you, I didn't do the thing you wanted me to do by the date. Well, what do you do then? Like, you know, so, you know, I mean, or you could try to crowbar waterfall into this and say, well, every demo is a milestone. And you know, however you want to do it. I mean, I'm okay with it, but like, you know.
Don't you have a somewhat of a waterfall method with this? Because you guys in the beginning, or I guess at the beginning of the year, or the beginning of the sprint cycles, you plan out multiple sprints. You say, hey, I'm going to, by the 6th sprint, I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah, you possibly do. You do have some of the
I mean, I've
concepts.
seen some of your
translate.
cards that you guys talk about that hey, that
Right.
was planned out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, some of the concepts do translate. They do overlap some, but you know, what you don't have is I didn't get task 156 done, so I can't start 157. You know what I mean? Like we try to break that. We try to break that mold. Do those types of hierarchical tasks take place? Absolutely. But like, how do you not do it that way? You know, like we just have one card. If 156 and 157 are so tightly correlated, that should just be one card. Get those two things done. I want to watch that. I want to watch that move from 2 to doing and done. Annalie, you got a question?
Well, two things. One, are there any contracts right now that we're really actively using this on that we could claim in proposals that, you know, we have Agile experience?
Yeah. We've tried to get our OMI customer, who's one of our forward-leaning customers, wants to do things a little bit differently. They've adopted some of this, a lot of it actually. So nobody hears from OMI today, but they've definitely at our consultation, they've kind of moved towards this model, which is really cool. Like, you know, our IT customers, a lot of them do use some sort of process like this. So like on I2S, we propose something close to this, and like throughout I2S, they're using it, but I'm not positive. And our Summit Task Order 3 specifically asks for somebody that's like, you know, Scrum familiar.
You're using this to help manage your market work. Do you have an example or two where this has really been proven success? You got a couple of success stories?
I mean, you know, I would say, like, you know, it's more about process than like, I mean, you know, it's how you broke down the rocks. It's how you break down the rocks. It's that the rocks get moved to the other side of the mountain or whatever. So I would say that.
I mean, do you think you're doing? You know, I know you're doing more interviews versus less interviews. Are you being more productive? Anything that you find is success?
Lee, like, can you help answer that? Like, do you feel like we're better organized using the Scrum methodology beforehand? Like, do you feel like the goals are better?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, it kind of chunks down. I like your rock analogy. Instead of us trying to haul one giant rock around the mountain, we're taking them in bits and pieces. I think we're slowly becoming more effective.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, the team was going to work on this. Is one of the weird. This is where you get into the touchy-feely, squishy stuff. The team was actually going to do whatever they were going to do. You know what I mean? Like, had we not been doing this, work was going to get done both ways. This way organized that work a little bit better than